good afternoon and good evening to you wherever and whenever you are joining us. Welcome to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. As always, I'm your host, the coach Nick Vesci, joined by the boy Stephen Vesci.
What up?
And the man Stephen Comlow.
Hello.
Now, if you're new to our show, we like to think of us as the sports show for sports fans about sports. We like to focus on what happens inside the lines of competition as opposed to the noise and the TMZ-like news that happens outside of it. Before we get to our top catch of the show, just want to remind you to follow us on all of our socials. That's on Instagram, on X, and on Facebook at WCME_sports. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify, on YouTube, and new for Season 2 on iHeartRadio. You can also visit us on our website, WCMEsports.com, for all of this info. And be on the lookout for new content, sports-specific shows. We had one drop already. Our WCME Basketball with the great Doug Howard dropped his first episode a few weeks ago. We got WCME Soccer, WCME Golf coming your way soon, so be on the lookout for those shows as well. Now, without further ado, we get to our top catch of the show. And this show, I went with our Mimosa Minute. If you're new to the show, we have a segment each week called the Mimosa Minute, sponsored by Maine & Co., the creators of the modern mimosa. And the idea for this is to highlight excellence in women's sports that may not otherwise get highlighted or sometimes don't get the attention they deserve. And so for our Mimosa Minute this week, I had a bunch of stuff. Like I was talking to them before the show. I kept seeing these things pop up, and I was like, man, that is the coolest thing I've seen this week. And the next thing popped up, and I'm like, well, that's the coolest thing I've seen this week. And got to the point where I had a whole list of stuff that was way cooler than anything else from the men's sports perspective. So to start off with, first thing is the HSBC Women's World Championship, which is Asia's major, is what they call it. It happened in Singapore on the LPGA Tour. All the big guns were there for this tournament because, again, it's one of the bigger ones they have this year. It's kind of – they already have 5 majors on the LPGA Tour. I don't know if you know that. But this would act sort of like a sixth in a way. And if you missed it because it was on late, I didn't because I have a screaming 4-month-old. So I was awake watching almost the entire tournament. But Lydia Ko, she shot a final round 69 to surge past the competition for a 4-shot victory and earn her 23rd career victory on the LPGA Tour. The final round started, everyone's kind of close together. And she just kind of surged, and the likes of Charlie Hull, our girl Charlie Hull, she fell off, right? I think Ayaka Furuwe, I think she made a run but didn't quite get there. A couple others that she was playing, like Ko was playing with, kind of fell off as well. And Ko outlasted everyone for a fairly easy victory. Halfway through that round, it was like, okay, she's in cruise control, which was very impressive, especially when you saw the big names that were struggling in that final round. Ko right now sits 25th all-time in wins on the LPGA Tour, and she has the most wins among active players, and believe it or not, she's just 27 years old, which is amazing. And we talked about this last year. The LPGA does a thing where you have to earn Hall of Fame credentials based on merit. Like they have a point system, and you can't be eligible for the Hall of Fame if you don't meet the number of points and qualify. And last year, Ko met that mark, and it's amazing. She's just 27 years old, and she's essentially in the Hall of Fame right now. It's an incredible career for her.
And I think the only person who's ahead of her in career earnings is Annika by like $2 million. It's not like yes, $2 million is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I could do a lot with that. But I think like in terms of like golf career and where she's at and how much like the longevity that's there for Lydia, like she'll end up being like the number 1 earner in golf if she at the rate she's going like very soon.
Yeah, I mean she could set a new bar that the Nelly Cordas of the world will be chasing, almost like a Serena-like bar for that sport. It's pretty cool to see it at such a, I dare say, young age. Right, 27 is still pretty young, even though she's been out there for over a decade. It's still amazing to see her playing pretty much as well as she's played in her career at this point. Moving on, UVA softball's Eden Bigham pitched the first perfect game for UVA in more than 30 years, striking out 9 of the 15 batters she faced in a 17-0 trouncing of Hofstra on Saturday. The last perfect game thrown by a Who was by Michelle Collins against Coastal Carolina in 1994. UVA is on an 11-game winning streak, and now they sit at 15-5 on the season. Pretty good for a sport at UVA that doesn't get the publicity, considering the number of national championships that school has accrued across their whole athletic department.
They've never been a softball power, have they?
No, that's normal. It normally goes that the sports that Tech can beat UVA at is football and softball and wrestling, and that's it. Everything else, Tech would normally get run over with. But it's interesting. Some of these have shifted. Like UVA's wrestling's been good recently, but obviously Tech baseball's been very good the last few years, right? So there's been some shifts and things like that. And again, like you said, UVA softball was the one that they that's a win for Tech there. They could hang their hat on, but it doesn't look like that would be that easy this year, as UVA again playing extremely well. And that 17-0, that was win. That's not an anomaly. This whole weekend, I think they mercy ruled almost every team they played, and they played like a ton of games, like 2-3 games in a day this weekend. Won every one of them and stomped the competition. And it was like playing Seton Hall and other teams. So it wasn't like they were playing just the Little Sisters of the Poor the whole time.
How many pitchers do they throw out there for a series? Because I know you usually have like one pitcher in softball.
That's a very good question. When you're playing that many games in a day, at least 2 games each day, you're probably throwing, starting the same 2 pitchers each day.
Yeah.
But again, your arm can still get tired, right? You're still human, so I gotta think they've got a lot of arms on standby. But you theoretically could just do 2 pitchers for each day.
I wonder what the rosters look like.
I don't know. That's a good question. I know standard stuff, and I still think they carry a lot of arms. I don't think it's
there's probably people that can do like your outfielder can be your pitcher or whatever. Like they don't
maybe, but you still have to, I don't know.
Utility. There's a utility.
There's like an extra spot in the lineup. Kind of.
I've seen 3, 4.
But
4. I've seen 4 strictly pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, you don't really need the way, because it's a natural motion. If you're wondering why don't you need as many pitchers in softball, that motion does not put the stress it does on your elbows and shoulder as the baseball throwing motion, the overhand motion, because our shoulder joint isn't supposed to go in that motion. That's what causes a lot of that wear and tear on the whole system, whereas that softball motion is what that was meant to do. So you don't have that wear and tear. You don't have the pitch counts really that you have to look out for. But again, you can still get tired. They're humans, right? It's still a full body motion, right? There's still fatigue that is involved there. And if you get that fatigue, you're not going to be as effective. The same way if you're fatigued as a baseball pitcher, right? So yeah, you're right. It's an interesting question. A good thing to look at. Sticking with another UVA thing, down 11 at the half at number 8 UNC. The UVA women's basketball team completed the comeback and took their first lead since the 8:28 mark in the first quarter, thanks to free throws by Kimora Johnson with 27 seconds left, and then rode 2 more clutch free throws from Paris Clark with 13 seconds left to defeat the Tar Heels 78-75 to end the women's basketball regular season on Sunday. I think the ACC women's tournament tips off Tuesday in Greensboro, I believe. So that was a very impressive win, right? Again, it's not just the comeback itself would be impressive regardless of opponent, but you're playing against UNC, number 8, top 10 team on the road. To be able to do that is
by the way, you know how much UNC dropped in the rankings because of that loss?
How much?
They dropped 6 spots to 14.
That's a pretty precipitous drop.
They are by far the biggest. Actually, sorry, Tennessee dropped 7 spots.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of crazy. The women's game, these are like big changes. Like -7, -6, up 4, up 5. Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's probably one of those things where in a week. Because so the way some of these conferences are, you might like Tennessee, right? In the
'Cause
SEC,
if
the
you
SEC
lose-
women are really good, the same almost in the same way the SEC men are. So you could wind up losing 4 games in a week in the blink of an eye,
Yeah,
and you
well,
can't.
so like I wanted to compare it to the men's, and a lot of the men's is up 1, up 2. Like there's a 5 that looks like an outlier, and then you get down to Texas A&M had a horrible week. They dropped 10 spots.
Yeah, they're almost lucky to still be ranked at this point.
Right after I said I like this team as like a good bet to make the Final Four.
Hey man, that's how it goes, man. That's why
You
it's
did
called
it to
gambling.
them. Yes. Direct all your vitriol Aggies fans to Stephen Veshy. What is his Instagram handle for the people?
Yeah,
it's the what caught my eye handle.
Uh-huh.
I did pull back because that was when they announced those Adidas uniforms that were just god awful,
ugly,
just terrible. And I was like,
just
you know what? I take
junk.
back everything I just said. They're getting bounced in the first round.
Yeah, absolute junk.
Yeah, well, don't bet against Buzz though. Buzz is
I know,
awesome.
that's why I thought that would be a good pick, and then but they got time to fix it.
Yep. Moving on, Emma Navarro from
UVA.
UVA claimed her first WTA 500 trophy in her second overall of her career, registering a double bagel defeat over qualifier Emiliana Arango 6-0, 6-0 at the Merida Open Akron in Mexico over the weekend. Navarro is the 5th player this century to win a WTA final with a double bagel. In the first since Iga Swiatek won the 2021 Italian Open over Karolina Pliskova. Pretty amazing there. That stood out to me because that means that her opponent didn't win a single game. Like that is as much utter dominance as you could possibly get in a tennis match. And yes, she was playing a qualifier, but take nothing away from that. It's a WTA 500 level event, so it's not like a Masters or a 1000, but it still was higher than the other event that happened in Austin this past week. That another American, Jess Pegula, won. That was a WTA 250 event. And if you're asking me what do those numbers mean, it's kind of like you have a point system, and you can only qualify for that event if you've earned enough points. So basically, at a 500 level event, you must have earned in whatever set time 500 points or more to qualify, unless the tournament gave you a wild card or they had a qualifying thing going in. So obviously, again, the higher up, the more prestigious it is. So the tournament Navarro had won before was a 250 event. So this is, in a lot of ways, her greatest triumph as a pro. She's still fairly young. I believe former NCAA champion, singles champion while she was at UVA, but a pretty good step there for Navarro. And a double bagel is really rare to find. Again, even against qualifier doesn't matter. Everyone's really good out there. So to have that level of dominance is pretty cool. Moving on, I promise there's no more UVA stuff for now. AJ, before he texts someone.
Promise.
Yeah, it is an empty promise. I'm sure I'll say something later.
No UVA stuff for now.
For now. Juju Watkins scored 30 points to lead number 4 USC past number 2 UCLA again because they beat them the last time they met. 80-67 Saturday night. UCLA has 2 losses all year. Both are to the Trojans. With this second one, though, USC clinched the Big Ten regular season title, which is kind of amazing that UCLA for a large part of the year was number 1 because they hadn't lost. They beat South Carolina, and then they lose 2 games to the same opponent, and now they're dropped. It feels like they dropped off the map, right? It's crazy. You lose out on winning your conference. You lose possibly getting a number 1 seed too, right? It's incredible. 2 games against one opponent. It almost seems unfair, but when you add them up, USC only has 2 losses, and you're going to tell me that they beat this team twice. It's kind of hard to not have them above UCLA, especially because, USC's got big-time wins. I know they beat Ohio State, who's a top team a few weeks ago, so pretty impressive game. Juju Watkins stepped up her play in both matchups, showed out for both of those. Pretty good stuff there in Southern Cal. Next, going to the Big 12, TCU claimed the program's first ever Big 12 regular season title with a 51-48 triumph over number 17 Baylor on Sunday. The number 10 Horned Frogs won the school's first conference regular season title since 2010 when they were in the Mountain West. TCU, 2 years ago, won just one conference game. And their 2 wins against Baylor this year are the first 2 times they've beaten Baylor in 35 years.
Oh my God.
Right, so that's an incredible turnaround for TCU. And you're doing it by going through the class of the conference, which has been Baylor. I believe Baylor has the most women's Big 12 conference titles.
Well, they used to have Mulkey there.
Kim Mulkey, yep. But she wasn't there for 35 years,
No.
So that's, an incredible statistic there. Good for TCU. And last one here, Maryland's Sarah Tebiasu drained a running three-pointer with 1 second left in overtime to give the number 19 Terrapins a 93-90 win over number 12 Ohio State, on Sunday. Anything else I missed from the Mimosa Minute?
Just for college basketball fans, it's a little different on the women's side than it is the men's. I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but it's extremely important to get those top 4 seeds in March because you get a home game for the first weekend. The first
As
2
in
rounds.
top 4 seeds in your region, not like the number 1, 2, 3, 4
So
overall.
you want to be 1 through 16.
Yes.
Anywhere 1 through 16. The top 4 in your region, you get a home game for the first 2 rounds, which is a huge deal.
And I think that's one of the bigger deals with TCU winning that game is that guaranteed that they're going to be inside that top 16. And I don't think they've lost at home in a long, long time. I want to say I saw it was like they're 19-0 in their last.
Yes, they are.
Something like that.
Yep.
So that's a big deal for them.
Yeah. I mean, think about So my Mountaineers are 16-0 at home. They're 5-5 away. They are sitting at number 16 in the country, but the bracketology has them as a 6 seed in the tournament, which would that would stink. So
that would put a damper on that season because I feel like WVU's had a good year, had some good wins. And you're right, that's a massive difference is if they're able to get that home game in Morgantown because no one wants to go up onto the mountain and have to deal with that. Anything else, Comlo?
No.
Nope. Love it. So that was our Mimosa Minute for this week, brought to you as always by Maine & Co., the creators of the modern mimosa. Visit them at mainsip.com and follow them on Instagram at maine.co. That's MAYNE to stay up to date with new releases and order your modern mimosa today if you feel so inclined. Maine & Co., championing women's athletics since 2020. Moving on to the world of hockey, or the NHL this week. You start off with your boy, the grade 8 Alexander Ovechkin. He scored the lone goal for the Caps in a 3-1 defeat at home to the Lightning on Saturday. The goal, his 884th of his career, now puts him 10 away from tying Wayne Gretzky, and 11 from breaking the record. Washington, though, has now lost 3 straight games for the first time all season. That seems remarkable that took this long. But your Caps having a little struggles there, Comlo.
Yeah, they were in a weird spot, but I mean, to put it into perspective, those were, I think I think those were the first 3 games that they've dropped in regulation in like months. So I mean, whatever. It is what it is. I still think them and the Jets are playing an arm and a leg better than everyone.
Yeah, I mean, when you do look at their lead in the Metropolitan, it is
they're 10
a little
points.
Staggering. Yeah,
they're 10 points ahead of Carolina.
Yeah, so you're right. It could just be a blip, but if it gets any more and starts to become an issue because while they should still wind up making the playoffs, now you're losing out on some home ice advantage or not having momentum going into the
I'd rather them lose now and figure it out as
Yeah.
opposed to like, winning like in years past, win the President's Cup trophy and go out in the first round, like back during the like Bruce Boudreau era. How many
Yeah.
President's Cups did we see Washington bring home and lose to New
The
York
Rangers,
or
yeah.
Montreal or Pittsburgh in the first round, and everyone's upset for months.
Yeah, no, I mean it is kind of amazing that it's two different seasons. Some
Yeah,
teams are built to win in the regular season, some are built to win in the postseason, like Florida and Carolina and Tampa. And
those
you
best of
see,
7 series, man.
yeah, you wear people down.
It's all about like it's as much about playing hard as it is about making those adjustments and watching film and seeing where the exploits are. It's about the coachability comes in heavy during the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of intangibles that you have to rely on. One of the biggest things is defense and being defensive minded
Mm-hmm.
and minimizing mistakes. Uh, it's like that the progressive commercial. I keep telling people defense wins championships.
Well, it does.
Well, it does, yeah. And you see that so much in the NHL because, yes, you could have a goalie catch fire. We've seen that a ton, right? Jordan Binnington, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, and a prime example of that for the St. Louis Blues when they won the Stanley Cup a few years back. But you also need to be, solid on the back end defensively. You can't have lapses in defense and give scoring chances to these guys because when you're in the playoffs, you're playing the best teams that are playing at their best. So you give too many scoring chances away because a shoddy defense doesn't matter if you have Patrick Waugh, Lundqvist, or Brodeur in there. They can still get beat. And I think you see like Carolina and Florida and Tampa have those things covered. And that's why you see them always do well in the playoffs with some,
Yeah.
Blips here and there. But you got to think in the East, it still runs through those three teams. And so if Washington's going to break through that, they're going to need their defense to continue to step up. I think their defense has been excellent this year. Jacob Chikrin, it was a fantastic addition. We've spoke glowingly of John Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about them, like I've said this before, they put up offensive numbers, but they're two-way defensemen. They are defensemen first. They play D first, and then they hop on the offensive end.
And the nice thing, too, that Spencer Carberry has is that, it's with the addition of Chikrin, Carlson's able to focus more on his defensive play. And if it ever gets, down to garbage time in a game and they need goals, they pair those two together. Because John can hold it down defensively, and Chicky has that explosiveness and that offensive prowess to score. It's fun to watch. But yeah, they look pretty. I mean, outside of these last 3 games, they look solid defensively.
Yeah. Moving to the Stadium Series game that happened over the weekend. A few months ago, this would have looked as a snoozer, but believe it or not, this game between the Columbus Blue Jackets and Detroit Red Wings at Ohio Stadium at the Horseshoe at The Ohio State University. Both teams, I think, coming into it had 66 points on the year, and they were solidly deep in the playoff hunt. I want to say they were occupying the last 2 wildcard spots, or at least a point or so in either way. So this was a big game. But Columbus won the game 5-3. The Red Wings came back and tied the game at 3 apiece in the third. But the Blue Jackets' Justin Danforth fought through 2 defenders to score the eventual game-winning goal. He also laid the boom to, I think it was Soderblom, who's 6'8", 250.
Oh, yeah, that one. He
obliterated this guy. Straight up demolished him.
They were looking for, weren't they reviewing that one?
I
know. I saw the review.
Garbage
and I was
NFL things where you lay a guy out and they automatically have to review it, and he hit him straight in the shoulder, and that was pride causing Soderblom to get up slow.
Yeah, a little bruised ego.
Yes. But Columbus goalkeeper Elvis Merzlikins stopped 43 of 46 Detroit shots on goal for a .935 save percentage in the game. Columbus has won 4 straight games with and scoring 5 or more goals in those games. They have scored first in 37 games this year, which is the most in the NHL. And they have the most goals by defensemen this year, which I thought was interesting. I guess they have Zach Werenski, who's a phenomenal player. But for them to have that, especially we just talked about how great the defensemen have been for the Capitals on both ends of the ice, is kind of shocking. I would have never guessed that Columbus led the league in that statistic.
Weren't they outshot by like 25 in that
Oh,
game?
yeah, it's a
They need
crazy
someone
amount.
to score.
Yeah, but it only takes one. You can win 3-0 on 3 shots theoretically, right? You can win 1-0 with 1 shot, right? It's kind of a funny game. The puck is shaped weird. It bounces weird in certain ways. The Hurricanes' Sebastian Aho scored his 5th overtime goal of the season to tie an NHL record in Carolina's 2-1 victory over Calgary on Sunday. Aho is tied with Brad Marchand in 2017-2018, Alex Galchenyuk in 16-17, Jonathan Taves in 15-16, and Steven Stamkos in 2011-2012
It's
for
elite
that record.
company.
It is a very interesting list.
Elite company.
What I think it's so interesting is that all of those are coming within like the last, 12, 13 years?
Yeah.
That's not that long a time when you think of the annals of hockey. And yes, I said annals, boy. Get your head out of your ass.
It's pronounced
I heard
analgesic, not analgesic. The pills go in your mouth, sir.
Thank you, Dirk. In a crazy back and forth, high scoring affair that featured 10 different goal scorers, the Maple Leafs defeated the Penguins 6-5 in overtime Sunday thanks to William Nylander's game winning goal a minute into the extra session.
Guy's so good.
Yeah. Well, the Maple Leafs on paper are so good, but it goes back to defensive wise, that's their defense and goalie are their issues. They have all the firepower we could possibly have on the team. And I think that that's the difference between them and Colorado. Colorado has Devon Taves and Cale Makar, among others, on the back end that shore things up, and they have all the firepower in the world up front with McKinnon and now Marty Necas and all those guys up there. So, yeah, maybe it's a good. The Maple Leafs have arguably the most pressure on them of anyone. They're the biggest franchise in the sport, but yet haven't won anything, so that increases the pressure. It's almost like the Cowboys, except the Cowboys have at least won something in the last, 30
years,
40 years.
And that's the crazy thing is that
30 years
is that the Cowboys have a more recent win than anyone.
Yeah,
than any Canadian team.
Yes, that's crazy.
In a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final, the reigning champion Florida Panthers used 4 different goal scorers to defeat the Edmonton Oilers 4-3 on Thursday night. It'd be a pretty good series if we saw those two match up again. They're, we've said this before, McDavid, I think, is the best player in the world, plays for Edmonton. You go up against arguably the best team in the world, right? I mean, you can't argue against it. They won the Stanley Cup last year, right, in the Florida Panthers. So it'd be interesting to see that happen again. I still, if that's going to happen, you got to think you take Florida because of the team aspect. But McDavid, you got to think at some point will break through. So these games, even though it doesn't mean as much because it's not in your conference, it's still the time of the year. This is tuning up for that second season, as we talked about. Down 3-0 and then 4-2 in the second period. The Pittsburgh Penguins came back to force overtime thanks to Evgeny Malkin's third period tally against the Flyers. And then Malkin registered the game winner in OT to give Pittsburgh the 5-4 win over Philly on Thursday. Anything else hockey-wise?
There. Yeah.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's playing all these random, weird one-goal overtime games and not always coming out the way they need it.
Yeah, you missed some big Rangers news, and it's a guy that we've all praised and said that we love. Jonathan Quick made his 800th appearance in net on Sunday versus the Predators, I believe. Huge milestone. I think he's like what the 16th or 17th goalie to ever do it, and the second American goalie to ever appear in that many games.
Who's the first?
It's some guy with a really long name. Hold on.
John Van Beesbrook?
Tom
Barrasso?
Hold on. But yeah, I mean, I thought for sure you would be all over that one, Nick, because it's Johnny Quick,
The Rangers are making me disenchanted. They just traded Jimmy Vesey and
John Van Beesbrook.
Van Beesbrook, yeah. There's actually a funny. I think it's DP who's told this story before, but don't quote me on it. But this announcer, I think he was doing some SportsCenter like show. Van Beesbrook played in like the 80s, 90s for I think the Penguins and the Panthers, and the announcer could never get his last name right. It'd be like John Van Brisbrick or
another Khabibulin type thing.
Literally every time couldn't get it right. But then finally, the one show he got it right, he called him Jan van Biesbroek. Got the first name wrong.
That's funny. And
Dr. Jan
in that game, Jonathan Quick recorded a shutout. So 800th appearance and another shutout for him. So I mean that was pretty cool. So Rangers gave him a little special shout out, a nice little nod on social media prior to the game, which was awesome. So that was really cool to see. Congrats to Jonathan Quick on 800 career games. It's nuts to think about. I mean, I can't believe we've been watching him for that long.
Yeah, I mean, he's been effective. We talked about for the Rangers, been really good as their second goalie.
Yes.
Instead of in Shesterkin's stead, I should say. I know Shesterkin gets the headlines. I think he's so streaky though that sometimes you need to throw Quick in there for a few games in a row because one, you don't want to say you're not dropping off. Quick is a Hall of Famer, a champion, and he's playing well. So sometimes you need that veteran steadying presence, especially in a team that's been in flux. I mean, like I said, they made another trade. Jimmy Vesey and someone else they traded away to Colorado for Calvin DeHaan and some Finnish.
Heard you guys are getting rid of Riley Smith too.
Yeah,
he was absent during that Predators game, and they cited the reason for excluding him for roster management. So that's a guy who I think you guys got from Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh retained some of his salary, and that's a guy that just hasn't fit in.
Yeah, I mean, New York's it's crazy. This team won the President's Trophy last year. Obviously, didn't win it all in the playoffs, but didn't get bounced in the first round. I believe they still had won a round or two, if I'm not mistaken. Was it them in first Florida for the Stanley Cup? I think it might have been. But anyway, they brought back much of that roster, and you've seen management get rid of much of that roster, including the captain earlier this year, Jacob Trouba. So it's starting to feel a little video gamey to me.
Yeah,
over there in Manhattan.
Plug it, yeah, like it's almost like they're trying to plug and play, like they have an infinite amount of resources.
Yeah. Anything else hockey wise before we move on?
I can't think of any.
A couple sweet ass jerseys. I believe Carolina went with throwback night with the Whalers. So we all love the Whalers jerseys.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Play the brass bonanza. Dun, 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 dun.
My buddy was at that game, and immediately on the drop of the puck, there was a fight. That was pretty sick.
In the Whalers jerseys.
In the Whalers jerseys too.
Gordie
Columbus throwbacks, or I guess
special
special stadium series jerseys, which are sweet.
With the cannon.
Minnesota had some throwbacks with that amazing logo. That was.
Those St. Louis jerseys we talked about too were pretty sweet.
Yes, the St. Louis ones.
Yeah, I still don't know. It was cool they wore their Stadium Series one against the Caps, right? But the Caps were having 90s night in the stadium, but yet they didn't wear the Screaming Eagle or even the Capitol Building black, gold, and blue 90s stuff. I tried
to find what made it 90s night there, and I remember seeing something about it because I was looking for games to go to. And I think it was 90s night just because they gave away something 90s themed to fans.
But they normally align the jersey with a themed giveaway like that. It kind of gives the whole aura, or it creates the theme of the night by doing so. So that I thought was interesting. I wonder if the players made the choice of, we feel like playing, look good, feel good, play good type of voodoo superstition type thing where they didn't want to play. Maybe they lost the last time they wore them, and or like I said, they lost 2 games coming into that, so maybe they didn't want to have that happen. So
rock the red.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, anything else before we move on to some more college basketball?
Yeah, let's move on to our Cooper Flag segment.
Okay, which I don't have anything at all for him. Starting off, one of the best games of the year was the Tennessee-Alabama game. Tennessee was down 76-72 with 36 seconds left against number 6 Alabama. But after Chaz Lanier hit a layup, and then Jemai Mashak had a couple free throws, the number 5 Volunteers found themselves tied with Bama with less than 10 seconds of game time elapsing for them to tie that game. And then after they forced a Crimson Tide turnover with 3 seconds left, Meshack caught the inbounds pass, dribbled across half court, and drained a walk-off buzzer-beating 3 to cap that crazy finish and give the Vols a 79-76 win in Knoxville on Saturday. That was
we were
crazy.
I had our good friend of the show, Patty, was over. We were watching that game, and my daughter's in that like play center thing, and the shot goes up, and we went, "Oh my god!" And she just started crying. We're like, "Oh no!" Scared her.
You like scaring small children there? Is that what I heard?
Oh no!
It's a hell of a buzzer beater. She's got to learn.
She gonna learn today.
Yeah.
Auburn's Miles Kelly had 9 threes and 30 points to lead the number 1 Tigers to their first win in Rupp Arena since 1988 in a 94-78 victory over the number 17 Kentucky Wildcats. But pretty impressive. I think 9 of 12 he went from 3, which is, I mean, that's humming. That's
9 of 12 is stupid.
Yeah. Guys can shoot now.
Well,
Happy learned how to putt.
some guys can shoot. Most guys chuck.
Yeah, a little streaky. Like anyone can catch fire.
Yeah.
Right. And
there's very few. I mean, God, so many guys take threes now. I don't even know who like the 3-point shooters are. Like I know Isaac McNeely at UVA.
Kentucky's got a guy, Brea, is one of the best 3-point shooters, and he is a pure shooter. You watch him; his shot is you leave him open, it's a layup. He's too good. But you're right; it does feel like everyone can shoot at this point. But I think Kelly is one of the shooters as well. I think there's
one a dude on Auburn that the lefty number 10, I think, that puts up numbers, and like every time he shoots, I'm like, how is this going in? And even the announcers, like, his rotation makes no sense to me.
Is it Janai? Are you talking about Janai Broom? Their best Janai player?
Broom. No, it's number 10. It's a guard.
Oh.
It's not Janai Broom. I know who Janai Broom is.
But he's lefty.
I understand he's lefty.
And he puts up numbers, lefty. So you said a lefty puts up numbers.
Yeah, but he doesn't shoot threes. Not really. But
he can knock them down.
He can, but he has a much better shot. I don't know. This guy's rotation makes no sense to me. It rotates like once as it goes to the hoop, and the announcer's like, it should be rotating like 3 to 4 times. Like, I don't know how he's doing this.
Well, as long as the ball goes in, right? No.
Yeah.
No one cares. Vanderbilt erased a 9-point halftime deficit, punctuated by Tyler Nichols' game-tying 3 with 2.3 seconds left to force overtime versus number 14 Missouri. And in the extra session, Michigan State transfer A.J. Hoggard had 7 points to lead the Commodores to the upset win over the Tigers at home, 97-93. Vanderbilt is one of those pretty good teams that if they weren't in the SEC, they might be fairly highly ranked, because the SEC is a gauntlet this year, as we've talked about many a time.
AJ Hoggard, he was at Michigan State.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Michigan State transfer AJ Hoggard. Hoggard. I think is the correct pronunciation. I know I saw that name. I was like, that dude played at Michigan State, and yes, he did. Number 10, Texas Tech held off a second half rally to defeat Kansas 78-73 for the Red Raiders' second ever victory at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas is reeling at this point.
Yes.
This is kind of what happens when you don't have good, consistent guard play, really.
Yeah, when you get AJ Storr.
Yeah.
When you throw $1 million at this guy that's not a good team player or a good teammate.
Yeah. The aforementioned Michigan State again rode a strong second half to victory in a 71-62 win over number 11 Wisconsin. Scotty. On Sunday, the number 8 Spartans were led by Jaden Akins, Jace Richardson, and Jackson Kohler, who combined for 40 of the team's 71 points. Michigan State just seems to grind out win after win after win. They've had a pretty good season. Again, they are top 10 in the country, and not a lot of people saw that coming. Again, the saying goes, you don't want to play Tom Izzo in March, because he seems to, regardless of seed, make a good run. But it's been a while since he's had a pretty good run at it in
deep
March.
run.
But
Wow.
it makes you feel like he's due, right? That should scare people who have to face.
We talked about last week. He has his national championship was 25 years ago.
Yes.
God.
Yeah, so that's also the last time the Big Ten has won a national title.
Was it really?
Yes.
Wisconsin was the closest.
That and Purdue last year.
Purdue, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No one was beating UConn last year, though.
No, that's an all-time team there in stores. Speaking of the Big East, St. John's won their first outright Big East title since 1985 with a 71-61 victory over Seton Hall on Saturday. Zuby Ejiofor had 17 points and 10 rebounds, and R.J. Louise had 21 points to lead the Red Storm to their fifth straight victory and their 15th win in 16 chances. And I was at the game. Patino, did he rep the white suit for that?
The all white, yeah.
Yes. The Godfather.
Classic.
Yeah, loved it. I think there was a stat that was like St. John's 3-point percentage is like under 30% or something, and there's only been like 3 teams to go to the Final Four where their 3-point percentage is under 30%, and those 3 teams were coached by Rick Pitino.
That's kind of funny. He wins, baby. Like we said it. I think last week gave the stat that he's the only coach to take win a conference regular season title with five different programs. It's pretty impressive that some people just know how to win regardless of who's out there. They get the best out of you, as evidenced by that virus speech that.
Oh God, what a good
the virus
speech.
video of the speech, or viral video. Sorry, Frank.
Bug.
But yeah, that is. I think very telling of the way he coaches and what he demands of players. And people, I feel like, we're like, oh, well, he can get away with it because of his stature, which in some way is true, but also everything he said is true. So it shouldn't matter who you are as a coach. If you're going to teach those life lessons to your players, which is what coaching was supposed to be, right, is using sport to create better people, right? Help you become better at coping with this world that's around you, and you use those the lessons you learn in the sport to transfer those over to real life. You should be able, as any coach, to give that speech. But if some coach who's not Patino said it now, people be complaining about this or that or whatever. But everything he said is true. And a lot of people that complain about it are either people who've never had to face enough adversity to understand it, or are ignorant of the fact. They don't believe in it or whatever, or are in denial, essentially, is what I mean. So no shock here, really, that they're doing this well. Maybe a little shock that they're able to win the Big East, considering the teams in that conference, that your UConn,
yeah, it's been a down.
Marquette, Creighton, Villanova's. Yeah, some of those teams have been kind of down, but it's what are they, 27-4, 26-4?
26-4, yeah.
Something
they're
like that.
Also undefeated at home.
Which is interesting because they don't always play their home games in the same place. They're like.
Have you looked up where St. John's is?
It's in New York City.
Yeah,
Is it not in Manhattan? Is it in Queens?
It's in Queens. Yeah, It's in Queens. It is the tiniest little patch of land that they have set aside for the college. That's it. It's this little tiny 5 acres maybe at the most.
Damn.
Yeah, it's small.
Well, hey,
sure
five acres in New York City is worth a shit ton of money. So they're sitting on a gold mine there. If they ever wanted to sell that real estate, I don't think they will. But yes, so you say 5 acres is tiny, but again, when you're in the city, that's still a lot.
They're right in Queens. Yeah, it's just not a big. It's not a big thing. It's here's the practice field, here's the soccer field, here's the baseball field, here's the track, and here's the basketball stadium.
Is it Carnesecca Hall? Is that?
Yes, it is. Carnesecca Arena, which
but,
I don't know, might be called Carnesecca Hall.
But they play a lot of their games at Madison Square Garden, which I think is where this Seton Hall game was, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was.
when they won that. Moving on, L.J. Cryer led all scorers with 20 points as the number 4 Houston Cougars secured their second straight outright Big 12 regular season title with a 73-64 win over Cincinnati and Jizzle James Saturday afternoon. Jizzle James, the son of who, boy?
Edgerrin James.
Edgerrin James, former
For
Indianapolis
shizzle.
Colts. Great. I'm always wanting to say this. For shizzle.
For shizzle.
Thank you, Tiger. But yes, we talked about this at length last week, but Houston, wickedly underrated for whatever reason. I think it's because of the style that they play, that they grind things out. But they still, when you have one of the best guards in the country at L.J. Cryer, when we talk about guard plays paramount in March, they'll always have a chance in any game, especially how well coached they are with Kelvin Sampson.
Yes, I love Houston. Those are Houston, St. John's. God, those are two teams you don't want to see.
No, and
a dogfight.
I would say the biggest reason is the coaching aspect.
Yeah.
They're two great coaches. Like coaching is overlooked until it's not. What I mean by that is until it gets down to where you think you need coaching, you discount all the other stuff that goes into it. You discount the preparation and the game planning and the substitution management and all these different things that go into coaching. It's an amazing amount of things that go into it. But when it gets down to the game management and how you put your kids in the right position to succeed, we don't talk about coaching enough. There's a reason the Rick Pitino's of the world can win wherever they are, because if you can coach something, you can get people to buy in and do the things that they need to do. You're going to get the best out of them. Pitino could probably coach a different sport. In all honesty, he's that good of a coach. Like the best coaches in the world, it doesn't matter what sport they're coaching, they will find a way to be successful.
The legs feed the wolf, gentlemen.
Love it. Nice.
The hell does that mean?
Seriously? Miracle.
The legs feed the wolf?
Yeah, you gotta.
Oh, because you gotta be hungry. Okay.
You gotta build your legs because the legs feed the wolf.
That's what he said when he was having them do wind sprints.
Yeah, when they were doing the suicides, and he was like, "Legs feed the wolf, gentlemen."
The legs feed the wolf.
Yeah, the
come on, Ed. Nobody's quitting here.
I get it now. I was thinking of a turkey leg, like the wolf
like Romulus and Remus.
Yeah, is only eating the leg.
No. You gotta chase down your prey. You want to eat, you gotta chase it down.
Who wants a turkey leg? Like
that's exactly what I was thinking.
This is called a Swanson. It is a bacon wrapped turkey leg.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, men's college basketball wise, before we move on?
No.
No.
All right. Moving on to the NBA. On Friday night, the Celtics raced out to a 25-3 lead over Cleveland, but the Cavaliers came all the way back to take their first lead of the game with 8:43 to go in the fourth, and they never relinquished it in a 123-116 road win over Boston. Donovan Mitchell led the way. Donovan Spider Mitchell. There's a spider.
No vacancy? Spider?
Led the way for the Cavs with 41 points. There's a lot of spider references you could go with here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you warm?
No. No.
No. All right, Spider. Joan Cusack. That who's digging him.
Joan Cusack.
And sticking with Cleveland, because they still have the best record in the league, and I guess this is where I lied earlier in the show. On Sunday, Cleveland used another second-half comeback to force overtime versus the Trailblazers, and then defeated Portland thanks to 9 points in the extra session from DeAndre Hunter from UVA, who led all scorers in the game with 32 points. I believe 32 points in 32 minutes in that contest. Ty Jerome from UVA also added 25 points, 6 assists, and 6 steals off the bench for Cleveland, who have now won 5 straight heading into Monday's action, and they became the first team in the league to reach the 50-victory plateau. Pretty impressive stuff there. I think that second win came without Donovan Mitchell. I think he didn't play in that contest against Portland, and you saw the UVA boys there combined was at 57 points from the two of them, which back in UVA days would be a whole game's worth of points.
If they're lucky.
40 minutes of points. But yeah, like I said, I lied a little bit there. Moving on, Steph Curry had 56 points on 16 of 25 shooting, 12 of 19 from deep to lead Golden State to a 121-115 victory over Orlando Thursday evening. Curry outscored the Magic by himself in the third quarter, 22-21. It's amazing because of the efficiency there, right? 16 of 25 is an excellent shooting percentage. 12 of 19 from deep. Yes,
that's ridiculous.
It's asinine to think that he took 19 3-pointers, but when you're going to make, 12 of them at that clip, can someone bring out a calculator? Your percentage there is, well over half, close to 60-something, 63%. Yeah, I was going to say about 2/3. 63%. Okay, if you're shooting 63% from anywhere, shoot every time you have the ball, right?
Green light.
Yes.
Green light.
And the best part of it is that they won. Too often we highlight a guy dropping 50 points and his team loses, and it's like, Jokic would be pissed off about that. That's what he cares about is winning. Wemby, Giannis, that they care about winning.
I was too busy winning.
Yes. So to see him win, and when you look at it, they scored 121 points. He had 56 of them. He almost scored half of his team's points, which is remarkable, especially for someone who's in their late 30s at this point in the NBA.
Like, for perspective of making 63%, the best three-point shooters make 40% of their threes.
Yeah.
If they're lucky. Like, Steph Curry's career three-point percentage is 42.4. His regular season this year is 39.6.
That was a turn back the clock vintage, watch every second of this Steph Curry magic.
I ain't as good as
Chef
I once
Curry.
was, but I'm good once as I ever was.
Thank you, Toby. OG Anunoby made the game-winning three with 5.3 seconds remaining as the Knicks topped the Grizzlies 114-113 Friday in Memphis. Then on Sunday, New York erased a 19-point deficit to beat the Heat in overtime 116-112. In that game, Anunoby from...
I have no idea.
I believe Indiana. Indiana, shout out. I believe he's a Hoosier. Who? Sure. Had 23 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. Lit up the stat sheet in that Miami game. And I bring up Anunoby because last week I think we brought up Josh Hart with the Knicks. And the Knicks, they highlight Jalen Brunson, rightfully so. Jalen Brunson's, I would argue, the best point guard in the league at this point, and he is the pot that stirs the drink a little bit. Him and I would argue Josh Hart, like we said.
Completely wrong.
You want to say Josh Hart?
The straw that stirs the drink?
What did I say?
I said the pot.
The pot that stirs the drink. That doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
Doesn't make any sense.
I'm Nick Egg on my face, Veshy.
Yeah.
Wrong.
John, I now have egg on my face thanks to the janitor Dorian.
Yes.
The straw that stirs the pot, or the kettle that stirs the whatever.
Oh my god.
the straw that stirs the drink. Or you could say, Brunson's the captain. Maybe that's a better term for
catalyst.
Him. Catalyst. That's a good day. Check out the big brains on Brett.
Royale with cheese.
You a smart motherfucker.
Yes, I bring up Anunoby just to say in the same vein that I bring up Josh Hart, is that the Knicks are playing really well, right? They played well all year. They played well all last year. And to win in the playoffs, you have to have contributions from your supporting cast. You saw it last year with Boston, with Derek White and Drew Holiday and, the Peyton Pritchards of the world, the Sam Hausers of the world. You got to have those guys step up in the event that a Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum aren't on that night. And New York seems to have guys that can do it. The addition of Karl Anthony Towns, massive for them. A scorer at that level on the court that isn't down low is big, right? And Towns plays both ways effectively. He can stretch the floor. He can do everything that you need. But you have these guys like the Anunobys of the world, the Mikal Bridges of the world, the Josh Harts, right? Those are the guys that you need if you're going to make runs. The
Miles
Deuce McBride,
Yep.
thank you, from
West by God, baby.
Yep, I was getting to him, boy. You've got those guys who you're going to need because at the end of the day, a team may say, well, we're just going to take away Jalen Brunson. Like they try to do to Jokic a lot of times, and Brunson will have to become a facilitator, and that does no good if you're not able to capitalize on the open looks you get when a team chooses to double. You should, at this level, get an open look every time someone doubles, especially with the defensive 3-second rule hindering help side defense as much as it does. If you're going to double anyone, you should get an open look, and you've got to be able to capitalize that. And when they traded away Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, you took away some of those guys who can knock down shots, but bringing in Towns, I think it was a great move for them. Like I said, it give you that score on that different level of the court. And the Ananobis, Josh Harts, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBrides, they're going to have to step up when it gets to playoff time. If the Knicks are going to want to make a deep run and electrify MSG like they want to do, and see Spike Lee get in a fight with Reggie Miller, and then Reggie and Kramer go to the strip club. If you want to see that happen, the Knicks got to step it up.
Got involved. Went on the court and threw a hot dog at Reggie Miller.
Involved. I didn't know Cheryl Miller had a little brother.
Cheryl Miller's little brother played basketball.
Moving on, the Lakers swept the weekend double dip against the crosstown rival Clippers, winning 106-102 on Friday and then 108-102 on Sunday. The Lakers have now won 6 straight games. I think they've only lost twice since Luka started playing, and it was like one of the first 2 games that he was in. So they are playing extremely efficient. The cause for concern is Austin Reeves. He had a calf issue, did not play. I think in the second game, only played 9 minutes, I think, in the first game when he sustained that injury. And as we talked about with the Knicks, you're going to need that supporting cast to step up for the Lakers, as great as Doncic and LeBron are. If LA's true team is going to make a run at another championship for LeBron, it's going to have guys like Austin Reeves play a pivotal role. And without him, Dalton Connect did step up in that game off the bench. I think he had almost 20 points, I think 19 points in that contest. You're going to have to have guys show up, but that's the danger, is that a lot of these guys are young, fairly unproven, whereas like with the Knicks, Karl-Anthony Towns, several-time All-Star, first-team All-Pro, All-NBA times, right? You have guys that you can rely on. The supporting cast for LA is unproven, but they've been playing very, very well as of late. Any other NBA news and notes before we move on?
Nope.
Nothing? Zip? Nada?
We have not a 3.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that 16-year-old commercial.
That had to be older than that.
You think?
Yeah, that was
Is that as old as the dumbass commercial? I'm dumbass material. The name is Dumas.
It's got to be 20 years old. That was like a GameStop or something, right? Or like a Blockbuster.
GameStop still exists.
I know, but they're not, no one goes in there. I know they still exist, but
the McPoyles are going to buy a few of them up. They're going to rejuvenate that burgeoning market, and you'll see GameStops at every corner now. There's still a bunch of GameStops. I don't think
because GameStop went through that big Reddit Reddit revitalized GameStop.
Oh, and the whole
yes.
2005.
Wow, 20 years.
Nailed it.
On the whole.
Yes, Preparation H does feel good. On the whole. Thanks, Scott. Nothing NBA wise.
It's not NBA, but can I shout out our friends at Breaking Tea real quick for just one of the best shirts ever real quick?
Can we see it? Did you pull it up?
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I think you guys are gonna. For some reason this didn't click when we were talking college basketball, but man, this thing is sweet.
Oh yes, I saw this.
The crab.
The crab.
Yes.
It's amazing. They have several of those. I saw
Dude,
those.
tell me this isn't sweet.
If I was a Maryland fan, my God, I would have gotten.
How do you not order 20 of these? You know what I mean?
Well, it's like I think I sent you guys the crab cakes and football one that they did for the Ravens.
Oh, man. This thing is sweet, though, man. Look at it. The Crab 5.
Yeah,
I love everything about that. That's so good.
That's a good shirt.
Yeah, that's so good.
They need to make a run. God, I hope. Like, I'm not a Maryland fan by any means, but because of that, they need to make a run to like the Elite Eight or something, just so we can have the Crab 5 be talked about for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they're a team under the radar. They're like 15 in the country, and I think part of that is because number like 9 versus number 30 are essentially the same team.
They haven't been ranked in like this is the first year they've been ranked in like 20 years or something like that.
No, they've
I'm
been
sure
ranked.
they've gotten ranked, but they've never sustained it or like been consistently.
This is what they're 22 and 7, I believe. The Terrapins are.
They're number 13 right now, right behind Wisconsin.
Yeah, but yeah, they're kind of flying under that radar there. The Terps are, but you're right. That would be sweet. They can make a run. We can see all these Crab 5 shirts.
Dude, if they make that run,
signs.
I'm buying us all. If they make a run, I'm buying all of us Crab 5 shirts from Breaking Tea.
I don't think in good conscience I could wear a University
I don't care.
Maryland
We're all getting Crab 5 shirts. Wear it, don't wear it. I'm buying it.
Send it to SVP. He's a Maryland alum.
That's a good point.
He'll it'd be better served giving it to him than a Virginia fan.
Yeah, let me just go to my Rolodex and find SVP's address.
I'm sure it's there somewhere. Well, if it's SVP, have your people contact our people. We'll set it up.
Hey, gotta anticipate that rush.
Yes.
You gotta think he's gotta wear a pretty big shirt.
How tall is he? Probably 6'3", 6'4"?
No, I thought SVP. SVP's like 6. He's gotta be like 6'5", 6'6".
Is he? There's no way. Are you sure?
I'm pretty tall.
He's that tall?
Yeah, he's 6'6".
Yes, he's 6'6". He's huge.
6?
He's huge. Been working out.
Thanks, Banya. A brand new Armani suit.
Love you, Scott.
I didn't want anything for it.
I didn't even want anything for it.
So what? You can take me out to dinner.
Yeah. Give me my suit back.
Thanks, Kenny. Moving on to our final segment of the evening, which is our favorite segment, brought to you as always by One Legacy Title and Escrow in Jacksonville, Florida. Visit them at onelegacyflorida.com and follow them on Instagram at onelegacyflorida to see how they can help you with your next house closing. One Legacy Title and Escrow, because your legacy matters. And this week, in honor of college basketball rivalry week, which is not nearly as promoted or substantial really as college football rivalry week, but it still has value if you look at the some of the matchups this week. We went with our favorite college basketball rivalries. So these are, might be a little different than what you would find from the college football perspective. So who would like to start with their favorite on the hardwood?
I'll start. I'll volunteer.
Send it.
Volunteers tribute.
I got an honorable mention and then top 5. Honorable mention, I went with the Backyard Brawl. It's lost a lot of its cachet. That's why it's not higher on that list. Yeah, I wanted to put it higher, but they don't play anymore. I mean, they play at the start of each year now. Like, it's okay, it's fun, but it's when you're 3 games into the season, it's not that good. Loses a lot of the old Big East conference rival. Number 5, Gonzaga St. Mary's. So the rest of this list, these are games that I want to tune in, that the teams are typically always really, really good, and there's battles. Gonzaga St. Mary's is always a great basketball game. Like, just the pure basketball wise is fun to watch. Always great coaches. There's always NBA talent on those teams.
That overlooked NBA talent, I think, is a better way to put that.
Yes, Gonzaga St. Mary's always a fun matchup. Number 4, Big 12 matchup. Now, this may not be considered necessarily their school's rival. However, when these two teams play, and especially because of where they're located and where the fans show up in the Big 12 championship, things get a little heated. Iowa State and Kansas. If you did not know this, Iowa State's fans show up huge at the Big 12 championship.
And I will say, as someone who's interacted with Iowa State's fans, some of the nicest, best fans you will ever see in the country and find.
Really?
In stark contrast to what you see
Kansas.
from the likes of Penn State and UConn. Iowa State, phenomenal fans. Up there with Oregon as some of the best fans you're going to find. And trust me, I know from experience.
I can see that. But Iowa State, Kansas, these two teams are really, really good. And they always get after it. Number 3, another old Big East rival, Syracuse, UConn. I believe there was a 9 overtime game at one point.
Is that Jerry Mack?
Tournament. That is, yes,
Was it him or is it Devendorf?
I thought it was Jerry.
It was McNamara. Now coach of who?
Siena.
The Siena Saints
of
the MAC. Of the MAC.
Yeah, Syracuse, UConn. That was always nasty. Number 2, how about UVA, UNC? It's not necessarily the big, it's not UVA's biggest rival. It's obviously not UNC's biggest rival, but they've been top of the class of the ACC. The last, when Tony Bennett was there, really. Tony Bennett versus Roy Williams, and UVA always had some sort of edge. They were very contrasting styles, and it was always a fun matchup. I think that, I believe in football, it's the South's oldest rivalry.
Correct. But not the deep South's oldest rivalry, which is Georgia-Auburn. It's one of the only rivalries that have been played more than UVA-UNC in football.
Interesting. But, yeah, UVA-UNC basketball, always great basketball teams, except for this year. Yeah. Number 1, obviously, UNC Duke.
Yes.
It's just a bloodbath constantly. And I believe they're separated,
figuratively and literally.
Yeah. And I believe they're separated by 2 points. In the entire history of that rivalry, they've each won the exact same amount, and their separated point differentials +2 or something. Is bonkers to me.
That is pretty wild.
And they're 15 minutes apart. Tobacco Road. Yeah, so UNC Duke has to be number 1.
Yeah.
I'll hang up and listen.
Kamala?
Honorable mention, I went with Duke, Maryland.
That's a
good one.
Good one.
Yeah,
They used to get at it.
I just remember
Gary Williams.
I just remember being a big I've always loved watching Duke basketball, and so I remember seeing people back when we were younger with shirts that said the good, the bad, the ugly, and it was Duke, UNC, Maryland. That was an all-time rivalry shirt. So yeah, honorable mention, I went Duke, Maryland, throwing it back a little bit. Number 5, I went Kentucky, Louisville.
Good one.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good one. All of mine, I think, are going to be pretty big ones. Pretty mainstream. When the teams play, they'll be on TV on multiple channels probably. 4, Indiana, Purdue. I really like that one because that Purdue's another team that I've always really, really just enjoyed watching, especially in recent years. They've just been so much fun to watch. So Indiana, Purdue. Number 3, I went Big Orange and I went Hoyas. Yeah,
Boeheim, John Thompson.
Yeah. I had to get a Virginia school in there, and I do really, really like Georgetown.
They're not located in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, but I feel that's just we can take them.
The DMV.
Yeah, we'll take
Maryland
them.
Counts as that.
I don't count that.
We don't 15 minutes.
I won't claim anything, Maryland.
20?
Sorry, except maybe that Crab 5 shirt. I'll take a Crab 5 shirt. And the Orioles, but outside of that, I could go without.
Are they technically in DC, or they're in DC?
Yeah, aren't they in Georgetown?
They're in the District of Columbia. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Like the neighborhood area that is called Georgetown, or is it where
Yeah, but
Georgetown is?
I feel
or
like
no?
we could just
Yes, it
take
is.
them. We could just take them. You know what I mean? Like we could just take
Yeah, hey,
Georgetown.
you know who went to Georgetown?
Allen Iverson.
Thanks. Dikembe Mutombo, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning. No, Bradley Cooper.
He went to Georgetown.
And I believe John Mulaney went to Georgetown. Did he,
John,
or did he go to Northwestern? John Mulaney, you might have to check John Mulaney, but Bradley Cooper 100% went to Georgetown.
Never mind. I'm not going to say anything bad about John Mulaney. I like John Mulaney a lot. Yes. All right. So number three, Syracuse, Georgetown. Number two, just two absolute titans in college basketball. We're going UConn, Villanova. UConn, Villanova. That's a big one, I feel like, and it's both teams, especially like down the stretch around this time of year when we're like prepping for big rivalries. Like both teams are usually very good and tournament bound, so there's usually like some good implications there.
I feel like they missed out on having Hurley versus Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That would have been great.
When Jay Wright got out when the getting's good, he didn't want to deal with the shit. He saw it coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then number one, I'm with you, boy. Give me Duke, UNC. It's
I
just
it's like almost de facto.
Like we grew again going back to our youth and our upbringing. We grew up in an awesome time for that rivalry. Roy Williams and Coach K. I mean, just unmatched. And like you said, I mean, it's usually like a toss up between in our at least in historically, it's usually been a toss up. Like you never know what you're gonna get coming out of there. And those games are always so physical. Like,
and it doesn't matter the records of each team like that.
No.
Usually they're both really really good, obviously.
Yes.
But even when one's got a down year and the other one's supposed to be the top 5 or whatever, somehow that ends up being a close game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's my list. You're up, Nick.
I like it. I'm actually going to start off with a couple things to educate the people on. They're not on my list, but I just wanted, since we're an educational show at its core, the Philly schools, they play in something called the City Six. It was formerly the Big Five, and they would play each other every year. It used to be Villanova, Penn, St. Joe's, Temple, and LaSalle, and recently they just added Drexel to that to make that the City Six. And I play a lot of games with it. It's called the Palestra, which I think in Italian means the gym. But it's one of the most historic basketball buildings in the country. They play a lot of games there. It's a really cool thing. I mean, in recent years, especially in the Jay Wright era, Villanova was so much better than those teams would just stomp them. But recently it's kind of gotten a little more competitive. I just wanted to educate the people on that. That's kind of a cool historic little, again, 6-team rivalry is something really rare, even a 5-team one, right? Another one I wanted to educate.
St. Joe's part of
yes, I said Drexel, okay. LaSalle. Drexel, or what is their mascot?
Dragons.
Dragon, thank you.
LaSalle is the Explorers.
Yes, because of
Red Hawks, or the Hawks, or whatever.
I thought it was just Hawks.
Hawks. Yeah, Hawks.
Temple Owls. Penn Quakers, Villanova Wildcats. But yes, those are the 6 Philly schools, even though Villanova is not located in Philly, but they like to call themselves like Philadelphia's school.
Yeah, the other Philly schools don't like that.
No, not at all. And the other one I wanted to educate us on, and boy, you hinted at this, and Kamal, you did too with your little Duke, Maryland. The old Big East and the old ACC. Back when we were a proper country and didn't have all this crazy conference realignment, all of the old Big East teams freaking hated each other, and all of the old ACC teams freaking hated each other, right? UVA Maryland was a game, right? Maryland against Duke, like you said, big game. You could have Maryland NC State was like a knockdown, drag-out fight, right? You had all these schools that just played each other every year. Big East, you talk about UConn, Syracuse, right? UConn, Georgetown, Syracuse, Georgetown. Literally, again, the whole thing. I mean, old Big East would have been WVU Pitt too, right? Yep. You had all these schools that just hated each other, that played in the same conference and beat up on each other year after year after year.
You lose that regional rivalry.
Yes. And those I just wanted, again, to educate the people on. Those were legit. Like, you could have picked any two schools from each of those conferences and said it was a rivalry, because that's how often they've played each other and how hard fought all of those games were. Now, moving on to my actual list, my honorable mention is UConn Tennessee women. Would have been Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt. Growing up and for a long time, those were the two preeminent powers in the women's game. And they played each other basically every year, and they still do. I think Tennessee beat UConn this year. It's the first time they beat them in a long time. We covered it on the show. It's like, I think since 2008 or something. It's been a while. But historically, they, again, very tight rivalry, played each other every year, basically to be a showcase and grow the women's game. So you can, credit a lot of what we're seeing, the depth of the women's game could be attributed to those UConn Tennessee games that happened every year that were so hard fought, because you had the two of the best coaches in the history of college basketball, period, and Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma going against each other and matching wits. So UConn Tennessee women are my honorable mention. Number 5, I have Indiana Purdue. The Hoosier State, chronicled in the movie Hoosiers by the late, great Gene Hackman as the coach of that team. I think Norman Dale, is that his name? Something like that he plays in that. But, basketball is king in Indiana, and the two public schools in that state, the biggest ones there, with the histories and the basketball programs that they have, Indiana Purdue is always a fun affair. I believe when Bob Knight threw the chair across the court, it was a Purdue game. You'd have to double check me on that, but I believe that was the case. I don't know if he throws the chair if it's another game. Now, you could say, well, please. But I stand by that. He may not throw that chair if they're playing someone else. But Indiana Purdue, their football rivalry, what is the trophy they play for, boy?
Last place?
It was Purdue.
I believe it's called the Old Oaken Bucket, I believe is what Indiana Purdue is in football.
That fits those two historically bad football schools.
Yeah, but Indiana did pretty good last year. Next one I have here, I'm surprised this isn't on either of your lists, is the Capital City Classic, which is VCU and Richmond.
I was thinking about it. It didn't make it, but I was thinking about it.
Two of the closest teams in all of Division I. I think yes. I heard that they are the closest, but I was like, really? There's not someone else closer? But separated by a few miles. You go from downtown Richmond or midtown Richmond to the West End out there. From VCU to the University of Richmond, you have that public school versus private school thing that gets a lot of rivalries going here.
It's about 5 miles.
Yeah.
My really issue with that is that it seems like the city of Richmond is all VCU and not enough Spiders. Like, there was that one year we were at I think we were at the apartment and the Spiders were in and VCU was out, and there just seemed to be no Spiders hype whatsoever.
Well, part of
it is
because, and Boy could attest to this. The majority of people that attend the University of Richmond are not even from the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
Tourists.
That is a very elitist school.
Yes. But that's part of what makes that rivalry great, is you have that dichotomy between the two styles of just school, because VCU is a massive school too. Yeah. Like, people don't realize that because they don't have a football team. I want to say they're the largest school in the state.
They also have, the majority of their students are commuters though, right?
VCU?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure VCU has a lot of commuters.
I can see that.
It's people from around the
Richmond area. Yeah. But you have that, going on there, and Richmond out in the hoity-toity West End. You got to drive through these beautiful freaking. It is like the best drive. It is so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I do love going to
River Road. I think it is down River Road to get to.
It is off of River Road. Yes.
To get down there, and
Liberty University is bigger.
Liberty? Really?
Well, because Liberty, yeah, but that's probably counting all their online.
Online,
shit.
Yeah. Liberty has a
University
massive
of Phoenix,
online. Yeah. Stuff. But yeah, VCU, you have that whole, like I said, dichotomy is the best word, but that contrast, right, between the two schools, and it is very hardly contested too. It's like their games are fun. Normally both teams are very good in the Atlantic 10. They used to be in the CAA together, and then Richmond left, and then VCU wound up following them a few years later to the A10. And so you get to see them play every year, twice a year, and it's a very highly contested, competitive matchup. And one that I tune in regardless of what their records are, because to me that's a true rivalry.
Yeah. Have you been to both stadiums?
I have not. I've been to the Siegel Center.
The Robin Center's nice. I mean, obviously it's going to be nice, but I like their setup at the Robin Center. It got
the
loud.
U of R.
You saw them play. God, who was it? I think it was Dayton last year or a couple years
that's
ago.
who you saw, right?
Yeah, it was. I
The
believe
Fighting
I saw them
John
play
Grudens?
Dayton, and it was loud. That was when they stormed the court last year. Yeah, they stormed the court against Dayton. It was that. That was a shockingly awesome environment. I really wasn't expecting that.
You know who went to Richmond?
Who?
Lil Dicky, Dave.
He went to U
He
of R.
went to U of R. Yes. Moving on. Next one has, again, that same, elitist private school versus the public school in the same city mentality. It's the crosstown shootout between Xavier and Cincinnati.
Yep.
It's a good one.
You talk about a fight. Like, literally, they're going to fight during that game. I think there was a time that they stopped playing each other because the fights became so much. Like, it is that heated, that highly contested. And one of those, again, regardless of where the two teams are at. And they normally have to play earlier in the season because of the difference in conferences. But, the difference in conferences because of that private school, public school mentality. But regardless of where the teams are at, something crazy happens in that game. Like, it's one of those, if you don't know about it, you ought to know about it. Shame on you. Like, it is a wild affair. That one is fun.
Wait, they're closer than VCU.
Are they
Richmond.
really?
I've got 2.4 miles.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty close. My next one, number 2, is Gonzaga St. Mary's. Like the boy said earlier, part of what makes that great is that those two are the class of the conference here, the WCC. And what I like about it is you have kind of that underdog David versus Goliath feel in Gonzaga as the Goliath and St. Mary's as the up-and-coming dog. But recently, I believe St. Mary's is on like a 3-game win streak against Gonzaga. They've won the conference too the last 3 years, which is pretty impressive and amazing. But like you said, there's high-level talent all over the court during those games, very unheralded talent, especially because so many of those guys are international players. Like Randy Bennett at St. Mary's has done, but basically built that program on getting guys from Australia and New Zealand and Lithuania and, all over the globe, right? And Gonzaga's become, a lot of ways, a national program recently that can attract transfers from all over the country. And so you have that, again, that feeds that little David and Goliath mentality. But that is just so well played, too, of a game. And regardless of where they are, at Gonzaga or at St. Mary's, it's going to be a raucous environment. Gonzaga, who would you say is the most famous basketball alum from Gonzaga?
Adam Morrison.
Not John Stockton?
Adam Morrison.
That was a trap question for you, boy. In St. Mary's, as we discussed again before, in honor of the Oscars, Mahershala Ali, at the time was not known by Mahershala Ali, 2-time Oscar winner, played basketball at St. Mary's, which is kind of cool. And obviously, number 1, like you guys said before, Duke UNC, the Tobacco Road rivalry. It is nothing gets better than that, really, in all sports. It is, like you said, boy, regardless of where the teams are at, you would think it's always going to be a close game. I know earlier this year when they played, Duke freaking stomped them, which is an anomaly.
This might be like the only year that's like.
But there's been times, I forget what the year was when we were growing up. I think UNC wasn't good and pulled off the upset on like a last minute shot or something, or last second shot.
It happened a couple years ago too.
Yeah, and
where
so
UNC wasn't good at all, and Duke was another top 5, top 10 team or whatever, and UNC ended up beating them pretty good, and it was like, whoa, how did this happen?
Katie bar the door, throw all the numbers out the window. This is a fight of epic proportion that's going to happen, and it rarely does it disappoint. The earlier meeting did. let's hope it doesn't for this last one
Need more
come up. I
Tyler
think
Hansbroughs out there.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the names like Hansbrough, I think was it Gerald Henderson who
Yes, it was Gerald Henderson.
viciously assaulted him,
complete elbow right to the face.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about before how the officials are having throwing some of these guys out of games for things that look innocuous. You can blame Gerald Henderson for that. All he got was just a foul. I don't think they gave him a flagrant, right? And he should have been tossed and suspended, but nothing, right? And I think that's why you see what we're seeing now from the officials in some of these instances.
Why does it seem to always be that Duke's the one being the dirty team?
Is
it the case, or does that just feel that way?
It's a little bit of each, because it goes back to, again, the public school versus private school elitist mentality. You have that there again with Duke and UNC. I think it goes back to that. But again, things don't lie. Gerald Henderson's attack on Hansbrough doesn't lie. It's there. It's evidence, right? He did something that you happen on the street, he's getting arrested for. Grayson Allen, same thing, right? Right, tripping people, doing whatever he's doing to people. You're right. The evidence is there, but it does always seem like they want to try to paint Duke as the bad guy, and I think again that goes back to that private school versus public school mentality type of thing. Again, I think they meet on Saturday, this coming Saturday, to wrap up the regular season. Anything else that we missed from favorites, or just anything else from the show?
Nope. I don't think so.
Anything you want to watch this coming week for the people, for the good of the cause?
Oh, there's some conference tournaments that are starting this week, by the way. I believe the ASUN Arch Madness.
Oh, that's always good. The Missouri Valley?
The Missouri Valley, yeah. That's,
the Drake?
Yes, big implications there. But also, like, the winners of these conferences automatically make the tournament. So we'll have the first locks. We'll have to get the map up. The map has to go up this week. We'll have the first locks, official locks into the tournament after this week.
Yep.
I think the only thing I'm really going to be watching this week is NHL trade deadline is the 7th. And so I've been keeping an eye on like rumors and draft and like boards and stuff like that to see how teams do and what they plan on adding or subtracting, looking at our buyers, looking at our sellers. And so I'm pretty excited to see who decides to go all in and who decides that, it's rebuild time. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I like it. And I'm going to want to watch my eyelids because I have two small, crazy male children screaming around all over the place. I would like to sleep. I think that'd be a nice thing.
I can't wait to see them.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That's going to do it for us here at What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials on X, Instagram, and Facebook at WCME_sports. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. You can find all this information and some on our website, WCMEsports.com, and be on the lookout for new sports-specific shows. Again, we said at the top of the show, we have WCME basketball already got underway. WCME soccer or football is happening soon, as well as WCME golf. As always, for the boy Stephen Vesci and the man Stephen Comlow, I am the coach Nick Vesci, reminding you to be decent to each other, have a good one, and we will see you next time. Take care, Guatemala.